Hello there. Would I be correct in assuming you've come to view my exhibition? You see, I'm an artist by trade and my chosen medium is stained glass. While it's not the easiest thing to work with, the results are worth the considerable effort required. It's taken me quite a while to reach this point in my career, and this is actually my first public showing. I was wondering if it's not too much of a bother if I might give you a brief explanation of the subject matter. Then pray, my good lady, cast your eyes at yonder pane. 'Twas the final days before the fall of Dalamud. Its inexorable approach foretelling our impending doom, panic spread like wildfire, while many in their desperation turned on the Sultanate. Looting and rioting broke out across Ulda. To quell the masses, Her Royal Majesty Ninamu took to the streets with a guard consisting of only 7 subjects. They alone had the courage to stand with their sultana. There she addressed the rabble. Heed me, my beloved citizens. The realm lies upon the brink of the 7th umbral era. Yet so long as we live, we must not forget our compassion. Now is not the time to take from your neighbor, but to proffer him the hand of succor. She was determined not to let the city that the immortal flames were risking their lives to defend tear itself apart in their absence. Her words brought the people to their senses. They laid down their arms and set about healing the wounds they themselves had inflicted on Ulda. Thanks to Her Majesty's impassioned speech, those who returned from the battlefield found their home much as they had left it, a gleaming jewel in the desert. It all seemed so long ago. To see the place today, you'd think that the people had entirely forgotten her words that day. The same hands that were once proffered in succor now grasp greedily at every last coin, even if it means one's fellow man must go hungry. It's times like these that we must remind ourselves of the sacrifices of those who came before us, which is why the Rising Festival is of such profound importance. I draw inspiration from Her Majesty's deeds all those years ago, and through my work perhaps others might do the same. Dear me, I'd better stop before I'm overcome with emotion. There are in fact matters which I must yet attend, and if I'm not mistaken, you are an adventurer, yes? I've something you might be able to help me with if you're willing. In addition to having my stained glass on display, it's been arranged that a wandering minstrel give a recital as part of the festivities. I'm looking to gather as many spectators as possible, but I fear I'll struggle to cover the necessary ground myself. Perhaps you could give me a hand? 12 bless you, madame. I plan to hand out these flyers, and with 2 of us, we'll be able to reach twice the number of people in the same span of time. If you'd be so kind as to look for potential attendees around the steps of Thal, I'll head to the Sapphire Avenue Exchange. Let's meet there when you're done. Yes. That does sound rather intriguing. If it's the same minstrel my associates have mentioned on occasion, I had best go and see what all the fuss is about. I hear he's rather talented. May I help you? Stained glass, depicting the Sultana herself no less. I've always been a loyal supporter of hers, and it would be remiss of me to pass up such an opportunity. I shall be sure to attend. Got something you want digging up? can't say I'm much of an expert when it comes to music and fine art, but it ain't often a bloke like me gets a chance to sample the high life. I'd be a fool to miss it. All done? Much appreciated, but I'm afraid I've run into a bit of a problem. I was in the process of handing a flyer to this gentleman when my friend Aston showed up out of the blue. As chance would have it, these two chaps are previously acquainted, though they do not appear to be on particularly good terms. But how am I supposed to pay you back if the amount keeps going up? If you'd coughed up the money on the day we'd originally agreed, there wouldn't be so much interest to pay. You've only got yourself to blame. But Aston, if your interest rates weren't so high, perhaps he'd been able to pay you back by now. I'm not saying you should wipe the slate clean, but surely you can come to a compromise. All I want is for him to honor our agreement. What's wrong with that? Besides, I've held up my side of the bargain, so why do I have to be the one to compromise? But let's say I give you the benefit of the doubt, that you genuinely lack the means to pay me back. I'll grant you 1 week's extension, but if you still don't have the money by then, there will be consequences. Only a week? Alright, you damned vulture, you'll get your gill, then I'll be rid of you for good. I'm sad to say that such incidents are parts of everyday life in Ul'dah. Someone in financial difficulty sees a moneylender as the answer to their woes, like an oasis in the desert. But it's only a mirage, an illusion of salvation, leading them into even greater debt. Then again, many debtors will borrow money without any intention of paying it back, relying on an endless stream of short-term solutions. I hope that those who look upon my art will remember the words of the Sultana and seek to help rather than exploit one another. Those two chaps you saw arguing just now would benefit from it, I'm sure. You know, Aston wasn't always like that. He's picked me up when I was down more times than I can count. We both grew up on the streets of Ul'dah with no one to turn to but each other. The only reason I'm even here today, making a living as an artist of all things, is because of Aston and his talent for business. With a few words and a couple of handshakes, he could turn a gill into a gold mine. But as the years passed, it became an obsession. No matter how much coin he made, it was never enough. I wish he'd realized there's more to life than personal gain, but nothing I say gets through to him. That's part of the reason why I turned to stained glass art in the first place. It can express my inner thoughts far better than words ever could. Well, my words at any rate. Oh goodness, I do apologize. You must think I'm an awful bore to rope you into helping only to bombard you with complaints and sob stories. But enough of that. It's high time I returned to the exhibition and prepared for the arrival of the minstrel. Ah, there you are. I hate to say this, but we've run into a slight problem, and by slight problem, I actually mean rather a huge catastrophe. So huge, in fact, I need a moment to compose myself. While I'm loath to impose on you any further, I have a feeling I may need your help again, or at least some moral support. Alright, enough panicking. It's time for decisive action. While we were out distributing flyers, the children were a little overzealous when it came to admiring my work. It seems they were unaware of the look but don't touch rule that normally applies to these things, and, well, it fell on the floor and shattered. This calls for 6 of the best. No, their punishment must be more severe. Not the first thought that crossed my mind, I must admit. The recital is due to begin any moment now, so the only viable option is to repair the smashed pane as best we can. I think that with a little adhesive here and there, the spectators will hardly notice the cracks. Unfortunately, I don't have any to hand at present. While I run off to fetch some bonding agent from the Alchemist Guild, perhaps you could try piecing the broken glass back together. Don't worry, I'll show you how it's done. Are you ready to begin? The following controls can be used to repair the stained glass default settings. Move cursor left, move cursor right, select piece, place piece, and cancel selection. Yes, that's perfect. With a few dabs of adhesive, it'll be as good as new. Well, almost. It should definitely suffice for the time being, though. All's well that ends well, yes. The children were beside themselves with worry, but now they're as delighted as I am. Oh, just a moment of nostalgia. I know from firsthand experience that moment of horror that comes when breaking an expensive piece of glass. A few years ago, I was helping Aston with one of his ventures as an art dealer. I was in desperate need of gil, so he hired me to transport a few pieces. That was when I dropped a case containing some valuable stained glass, and I'll never forget the awful sound it made. But rather than curse me for my clumsiness or fret over the money it had cost him, his only concern was whether I'd cut myself on any of the shards. So you see, that's why I don't blame the children for their little misadventure. I suppose I'm following Aston's example. Actually there's one more favor I'd like to ask of you. I think if Aston were to see my stained glass, it might remind him of the days when there were things more important to him than money. Of course, I've tried various approaches in the past, and most of what I say to him goes in one ear and out the other. But if were to come from someone else, such as your good self, he might be more inclined to listen. Would you mind having a word with him? You're too kind. Perhaps you could start by handing him this flyer and going from there. I expect he's in the quicksand where he carries out much of his business. His clients tend to be a bit more malleable when they're in their cups, it seems. Anyway, if you could rouse his interest in the festivities, we'll leave the rest to him. I remember you. Ben's assistant, yes? Or maybe he's yours. Either way, I appreciate you looking out for him. He needs all the help he can get. Though I must say, if you've something that requires my attention, I'd rather you keep it brief. Yes, I know all about Ben's exhibit, thank you. Keeping my ear to the ground as I do, there's little that goes on in Ul'dah that escapes my notice. So why did he send you to advertise it to me? He wants to remind me of the good old days? I might have guessed it would be something as sappy as that. A lot's changed since then, but he's still the same draft sod he's always been. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, mind you. It's his sentimental side that allows him to create such evocative works of art. But I always felt that if he tried to make a living out of it, he'd lose the very essence of what makes his pieces so special in the first place. Rather than expressing himself, he'd have to pander the taste of wealthy but fickle clients to turn a profit. That's why I wanted to earn enough for the both of us, so he'd be free to pursue his dreams. While he doesn't need me to pay for his bed and board anymore, I'm still around to help him if he falls on hard times. And just to make it perfectly clear, it's not that I don't want to attend the exhibition. I decided not to go because if people were to think that Ben is associated with a moneylender like me, it would ruin his good reputation. But if he insists that I go, perhaps I can make an appearance without drawing too much attention. Tell him I'll think about it, would you? So what did he say? I'll just have to wait and see. Whatever the outcome, I'm very grateful for all you've done, and I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear I saved you the perfect spot from which to view the event. Citizens of Ul'dah, by my words be transported to the days before the calamity, a time when all hope seemed lost. As the lesser moon hung low in the sky, a wave of terror washed over this fair city, turning neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother. There in the midst of chaos she stood defiantly, and so our tale begins. Hearken now to the Sultana's 7. Astonishing. I could see the events of that fateful day in my mind's eye as vividly as I see you now. Such a profoundly moving performance would surely have touched the hearts of everyone in attendance. Aston, you came after all. An artist you may be, but subtle you are not. Now is not the time to take from your neighbor, but to proffer him the hand of succor. A message to all of Ul'dah, I'm sure, but also one meant specifically for me. I have to admit, the Sultana made a good point, and it still stands to this day. Maybe it's time I thought about earning an honest living. I knew you'd come around sooner or later. And Aston, I can take care of myself now, so you needn't go to such lengths to support me. I'm glad to hear it, but let's get one thing straight. I didn't become a moneylender just to cover your expenses while you carved out a career as an artist. I just didn't want you to compromise your ideals and the quality of your work for the sake of keeping a roof over your head. Now you can concentrate on doing what you do best, bringing joy to people through your art. As for me, I should find a better use for my skills. Perhaps I could go back to being an art dealer. That way you can create whatever works you please while I seek out potential buyers. It certainly beats making commission pieces for some pretentious buffoon. You're suggesting we go into business together? Yes, unless you have any objections to working with a very recently reformed moneylender. Of course not, and I know just where to start, producing more paintings featuring the Sultana and her 7 trusty followers. Imagine the streets of Ul'dah lined with stained glass depicting its illustrious history. The sparkling jewel of the desert will shine brighter than ever. This is more than I could have ever dreamed of. Of course, none of this would have been possible without your kindness, Nina. You probably hear effusive words of praise quite often in your line of work, but I sincerely mean it. Thank you for all that you've done. Oh, and there was one other thing I meant to tell you. The wandering minstrel was, wondering if he could have a word with you. In fact, he has a present of sorts to give you. He should be somewhere nearby. Best of luck finding him. Ah, you are come as I knew you would. Jaban Tia speaks very highly of not only your skill at piecing together broken glass, but of your loyalty and compassion. Your virtues are many and varied indeed. Were it not for your contribution, the festival would have been without its centerpiece. My accompaniment of song was naught but a garnish to the fine dish that was our mutual friend's glorious work of art. Perhaps you will allow me to express my gratitude with another piece I have composed. Welcome, Warrior of Light, or should I call you Warrior of Darkness? You needn't be alarmed by these strange surroundings. This is a world that exists outside of your reality. Could it be a dream, a flight of fancy conjured by your weary mind? Perhaps, or perhaps not. It is an honor to be reunited with you in this world between worlds. I have been following your adventures with great interest. Your travels have taken you to lands far and wide, and you have encountered people of all walks of life, each with their own ideals, hopes, and dreams. As time flows onward in a never-ending spiral, the course of history is guided by mortal hands. Though our existence be brief, our deeds echo for eternity. 7 years have passed since the lesser moon descended, 7 years since mankind rose from the ashes. 'Twas a spectacle none shall ever forget, and that they lived to tell the tale is cause for both celebration and reflection. When we cast our minds back, it is not sorrow that fills our hearts, but joy, for we have been afforded a second chance, that we may learn from the lessons of the past. As we set forth toward new horizons, those with a thirst for adventure will lead the way. While there may be hardships and strife on the road ahead, there is no obstacle that we cannot overcome if we believe in ourselves and each other. Countless kindred spirits share our journey, and it is through mutual respect and understanding that we may create a better world. The future is what we make it, by our words and deeds, and we will forever be at your side, brave adventurer. You have our undying gratitude now and always. Ever will we be watching over you. Guide the realm unto peace and happiness, warrior of light and darkness both, till next we meet. And lo, you are returned. Pray tell, are you left with pleasant memories, fleeting though they may be? That is well, for such visions are wont to fade all too quickly. As the morning dew and the light of the rising sun, mayhap another of my verses would make a suitable gift ere we part. In the wake of calamity, light descends once more, to illuminate a world reborn, risen from fires of war. 'Neath the eyes of heaven, deception crumbles to dust, those divided by malice united by bonds of trust. On fields awash in crimson, battle raged far and wide. In the name of liberty, the courageous few turned the tide. Unto a distant realm, drowned in radiance unrelenting, rides forth the harbinger of night, iron will unbending. For the sake of their loved ones, there are those who take to the battlefield, and yet those who remain behind have their roles to play. Protectors and the protected, providers and the provided for, principles upon which every nation is built. It is the duty of those who rule to ensure that these elements are kept in balance, even if they must face great peril. The words of the Sultana ring as true in the here and now as they did on that fateful day. May each of us take them to heart as we face the new dawn as one.